Hey everybody, it's Andy, and welcome again to my office in Modesto, California. If you're new to the channel, I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in California as well as New York, and today actually is the second time in 2 days that I've shot this video. I actually tried to shoot this video yesterday, but didn't realize actually that the lighting here out in my conference room is slightly different than the regular office where I shoot these videos. That regular place that has the white board kind of in the background, that's actually in another room kind of off that way. But for a change of pace yesterday, I decided to shoot this video out here, not realizing that the shadows and all that stuff are different. So you can probably see that reflection kind of in the window there. That's one of the kind of lights that I have set up in the background so you can actually see me when I'm talking to you. So hopefully, that background sort of aside, the topic of today's video is going to be California child support. So on my channel, I have other videos about I believe like how child support is computed, how or if new partner income basically affects the child support computation. I'll try to link those up here, but if I can't figure out how to do that, I'll go ahead and link it down below in the description for you. But the basic idea there is that if you are, I guess, if you're the parent who pays child support or if you're the parent who receives child support each month, most of the time I would say you're basically focused on just the final figure. For instance, if you're paying, child support, you just know child support's $900 a month. If you're receiving it, you just know that it's $1,100 a month, and that's basically it, for example. But within that figure, within that $900 or $1,100 or whatever the figure is, within that figure, there's actually several different pieces, and that's going to be what I'm going to, describe in this video. As always, I'm going to give you guys, code sections, statutes, things like that. So you can go ahead and Google it. You don't have to basically believe what I'm trying to tell you. You can Google it yourself also. All right, so hopefully that kind of makes sense what we're trying to do here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first amount, or the first component rather, is going to be the guideline or the base amount. Guideline or base amount. The terms are used interchangeably, basically. So the basic idea with the guideline or base amount is that's the amount that is computed by the software. So if you're involved in a California child support case, you most likely have heard the term DissoMaster before. DissoMaster is the name of a particular type of software that's used to compute child support. It's really common. It's not the only software, but it is the most common one that's used. There's a term for this, I don't remember what it is, but basically the most common kind of software or machine or whatever that's used to do a particular thing. A lot of times the name for that software or tool or whatever is actually just adopted to refer to the, it's adopted in a more generic sense, Xerox, Kleenex, that kind of thing. So anyway, DissoMaster is the name of the software. Most of the time people go like, oh, okay, the guideline amount, that's what DissoMaster gives you. DissoMaster, like I said, not the only software, but it is the most common one. If you are kind of going online, for example, and actually doing some computations yourself, you'll find that actually there are online calculators also to give you child support, kind of figures. But so I guess to kind of summarize, the guideline or the base amount, that's basically the amount that is determined by software, by formulas. The idea behind it is that, that amount, the guideline amount, is uniform for all children across the state of California. All children with the same timeshare, all children with the same parents who make the same income. So, there's no kind of, discrimination, if that's the right word, based on geography. Every child with the same parents who make that income, with that timeshare, will get the same baseline amount. The base or guideline amount, rather. So, hopefully that kind of makes sense. So the first component is going to be the guideline or base amount, uniform across the state of California. It primarily depends on two factors. Number one is going to be the timeshare or the percentage of each calendar year that each child spends with each parent. Timeshare is the most common kind of way to compute that, but it's basically going to depend on the number of hours, the amount of time that each child spends with each parent. That's factor number one. Factor number two is going to be the gross monthly income of each parent. So basically, those are the two primary factors that determine what guideline or base amount is. You take those two figures, you throw them into DissoMaster. You also have to take some other tax-related figures also, filing status, for example. That type of stuff you put it into DissoMaster, but timeshare percentage as well as the gross monthly income, that's primarily what determines guideline or base amount. All right, so if you want the kind of statute for that, there actually is a formula for it. It's Family Code Section 4055, which I'll link down below also. But Family Code Section 4055 has, the formula, if you're interested in that, about how DisAmaster is supposed to work. All right, so that's, I think most people probably know about the guideline or base amount because, you see it in court all the time. You see the printouts and stuff from DisAmaster. There's two other parts, however, to California child support. Most people, I would say, don't know about them, but that's why I'm making this video. So what I'm talking about now is the add-ons. So there are two different add-ons, the discretionary add-on as well as the mandatory add-on. You can probably guess based on those names, what they basically are. But these are things that are added on to the guideline or the base amount, depending on the situation. So the first one I'll talk about is the mandatory add-on. That's Family Code Section 4062A in California. I'll try to link that down below. If I could fit it and not kind of make it too confusing over the window here, I'll try to write it over here also. But 4062A of the Family Code in California, that's where mandatory add-ons are kind of described. And there's basically two main types of mandatory add-ons. The first one is going to be childcare needed for work or school. Childcare needed for work or school. So ultimately, of course, in California, every parent needs to become self-supporting to the best of their ability. They need to work, go to school so that they can get a job, for example. And just kind of the reality, of course, is that some amount of childcare is going to be needed in the vast majority of cases, and the cost of that is going to be something that the court in California has to add on to whatever the guideline or base amount is. So childcare needed for work or school. The work or school part's actually fairly important also. I mean, that's what the statute says. So if you're in a situation, for example, where childcare is needed so that the parents can go date, for example, date other people, that's not included. So this is specifically childcare needed for work or school. All right, so that's mandatory add-on number one. The other mandatory add-on that's really common is, quote, reasonable uninsured health care costs for the children. That's kind of what the statute says. So the basic idea here is that in California, for minor children, if you have minor children, you have to provide provide health insurance for them somehow, either through your job or you got to go buy it out on the kind of public market somehow. But depending on the insurance that you buy, you might not get insurance that covers everything. So for instance, if your child has some special condition that requires special medication or special eyeglasses or special, therapy or something that for whatever reason your insurance does not cover, that's a uncovered basically healthcare expense for the child, and that has to get added on to the mandatory add-on also. All right, so hopefully that kind of makes sense, I guess. So two primary things: childcare for work or school, as well as reasonable uninsured medical expenses for the child. Excuse me. So that's the mandatory add-on, Section 4062A. And earlier I mentioned the other part is the discretionary add-on. That's Family Code Section 4062B. Again, link it down below also. But the discretionary add-on part here, there's going to be two things that, by the name, discretionary basically does not apply in every case. So this is going to be very judge dependent. Certain judges will add it, certain judges won't. That's just how it is, basically. So two primary kind of things that I often see as far as discretionary add-ons go. So the first one's going to be costs related to education or other special needs. Education is how I typically see this. So for instance, if a child needs special tutors because they're not doing so well academically, or if a child is doing really well academically but they show a particular talent in a type of thing. So for instance, if they're really, really good at math or science or literature or, I don't know, biology or something, and there's like a special class or a special summer camp or something that's, kind of suited for that. I've also seen it basically for athletics as well. So if it's a, like a soccer camp or like a football camp or something, sometimes I've seen that basically be added as a discretionary add-on also. So number one is going to be costs related to education or other special needs for the child. Number two, and this one actually does not apply in every case, is travel expenses for visitation. So obviously, if the parents live close together, like if they're in the same town and it's just like a 20-minute car ride or something, that's different. Basically no real kind of expenses for that. But if, for instance, mom lives on the West Coast and dad lives on the East Coast, and the kids have to fly back and forth all the time to see mom and dad, well, okay, in that case, there could be expenses for airfare, that kind of thing, that a lot of times will be split between the parents also. So yeah, I mean, those are the two most common discretionary add-ons that I see. Number one, I guess number two, travel expenses for visitation, and number one, the first one that I mentioned, would be costs related to education or other special needs of some kind. Right? So hopefully all of that helps. To kind of recap real quickly, the child support amount, the ultimate figure that you have to pay or that you're receiving, there's actually several parts built into that. So number one is going to be the guideline or the base amount. Again, that's what's computed by software. DissoMaster would be the most common software. So a lot of times you hear the term DissoMaster, that's what DissoMaster, the term a lot of times is used to refer to the guideline or the base amount. And again, it's Family Code section 4055 is where all of that is described. And then the other two parts, which I'm willing to bet most people don't know, is number one, the mandatory add-on, that's Family Code section 4062A. Typically that's going to be childcare for work or school, as well as reasonable uninsured medical expenses for the children. So again, 4062A of the California Family Code. And then the second part here, is going to be the discretionary add-on. That's Family Code section 4062B in California. And the two most common kind of components of that are going to be travel expenses for visitation. Obviously does not apply in every case. And number two, it's going to be costs related to education or other special needs of some kind for the kids. All right, so hopefully that kind of helps you guys, just in case you were wondering about that. But child support in California actually includes more stuff than just, one figure. Like, within the $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever it is that you're paying or receiving, there's actually more components into that. Yeah, like it's not just like that figure like has stuff in it, I guess, just in case you were wondering, or just in case it's helpful. Just in case it's helpful for your case. All right. So yeah, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that kind of all made sense. Go ahead and share, comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff that I always say. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.